Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Yellow Card Podcast. It is episode 26 this week. Episode 26.
Yeah, put some
Chris
emphasis
Jones,
on 26.
Chris Jones, Andrew Fasciano, Diego Galvez. We're
I'm
off to
starting a fucking hot, boys.
We're already off to a hot start. I love it. I love it.
Heck yeah.
Before we start, shout out to Vice President of Couch Guy Sports, Jared Scally. Happy birthday, you handsome little fella, you.
Enjoy the day.
Birthday, Jared.
Enjoy the day.
Enjoy the day, seize the day. And I don't know, maybe make another baby. Make another Manscaped baby. It'll help.
He's already got one. Let the kid grow up first before they decide if they want to go number 2 or not.
Listen, it'll help extend the Manscaped sponsorship. There's nothing like taking care of your balls, Jared. So happy birthday. Either way.
One day we'll be able to drop that in here.
Oh, one day, absolutely. All right, so either way, this week, lots of soccer action happened. We have from Champions League all the way to Europa League, Premier League. We got some news out of North America as well with the She Believes Cup. So lots of content to talk about today, but let's get started right away. Champions League took place this week. Lots of action on it. As you know, your boys gave you some scores predictions. Let's find out how that went this week, because last week was a big yikers for at least your boy Diego was a big yikers. For Andrew, it went well. For Chris, it went well. But for me, oh, wow. That was a big
I was 1-3, man. I was horrible as well. We
Dude,
both struggled.
You at least had a win. I went 0-4. 0-4. How do you go 0-4?
I was the best last week because I was 2-2. This week I'm 2-2, but I was the worst because my co-hosts went 3-1 respectively. I went 2-2, so I'm sitting at 63 and 43. Diego went 3-1, is now 58 and 48, and Andrew went 3-1 and is now 32 and 24. Quick round of applause for Andrew for getting Real Madrid right, and quick applause for Diego for getting Chelsea right. And we all knew that Bayern and City were going to win.
Yeah.
Andrew was the closest with City, and Diego was the closest with Bayern, and I was just sitting here with my thumb on my butt, predicting 2 draws that just didn't happen.
Well, that's a weekly occurrence, but that's okay.
No, dude, come on, get it right. I take my thumb, I sit on it, and I rotate.
Oh my goodness, that is terrible. Anyway, so as you guys heard, just a quick update on Champions League. Champions League action isn't back until March 9th when Juventus and Porto, Sevilla and Dortmund, PSG, Barcelona, and Liverpool and Leipzig face each other again. So the second leg of the round of 16 returns on March 9th.
Ooh, question.
Yes?
Real quick before we move on from the Champions League. Which team that is currently down right now in the aggregate do you think has the best chance of coming back and moving on to the round of 16?
I'll start.
Star Fasciano.
Yeah.
If I'm picking one team, I'm going Juventus. For a couple of different reasons. One, because of my co-host Chris here. We got to keep him happy.
Yeah. Especially when Liverpool can't.
Right. Second, they were on the road. They scored an away goal. So even though they lost 2-1, that away goal could end up being very important. You only need a 1-0 win for Juventus to go through because of that away goal. And then the other side of that coin is that because they were on the road in the first leg, they're coming home in the second leg, should theoretically have a home field advantage. I'm not sure what Italy's doing right now, whether or not there's fans in that stadium, but no, still. Got the comforts of playing at home. I also, frankly, think they're on paper a better team than Porto. So I would give. There's a couple of different teams that I could also see turning over the deficit from the first leg, but if I had to pick one, I'm going with Juventus.
I mean, they've been picking up steam. They went from 5th to 3rd in Serie A over the last week or so. So they're picking up some steam in the Serie A as well. For me, I do like Juventus, but to go on a different angle, Atletico Madrid. You know, they played a tough Chelsea team. They only gave up 1. They have a chance now that they're on the road to take take it to Chelsea, and I think Diego Simeone and company are going to bring their all in this one. I like to see them more on an attacking front, and if we can see that, I think Atletico Madrid has a realistic chance of moving on to the round of 16. I do like Chelsea, though. The way they've played under Thomas Tuchel has just been phenomenal. Yeah. And I think we're going to see it. So this second leg, to me, is going to be very, very good.
Yeah, no, I mean, the first part of the second leg with the March 9 return matches, I definitely think even Sevilla has a good chance of making things more interesting in that match. I would also almost venture to say that the RB Leipzig and Liverpool game could be coming to a close ending. I mean, Leipzig has always been known to fight until the very last minute. They've done it all along in this tournament. So I wouldn't count them out just yet. I do think Liverpool moves on that one, but I wouldn't count Leipzig out of the equation very fast. As to the second part of that leg, I agree. Atletico Madrid definitely has a good chance of making a good comeback. But so does Atalanta. I mean, that game against Real Madrid, Real Madrid left a lot to desire from there. Not a lot of creation, a very stale formation that has always been their DNA, and people are starting to just kind of
figure out how to play against it.
Yeah, figure out how to play against it, and really even not so much even just so much play against it, but make it even a better game than what they've offered all along. So I think, like I said, if Pessina, Zapata, and Muriel can manage to create a very attacking game against that back four of Real Madrid, we could even see Atalanta winning that second part of the match, like 3-0 easily.
So they only technically need 2 away goals, and for Real Madrid to not score 2 goals at home, and they'll move on.
Mm-hmm.
Sevilla, it's a little bit tougher because of the fact that you gave up the 3 away goals to Dortmund, so you have to go to Dortmund and beat them in order to move on. But I think we can easily say that Bayern Munich's definitely moving on. City's definitely moving on. I think the majority of us can say PSG, but there's the thought in the back of our heads about where Barcelona has the history of doing this to them.
Mm-hmm.
But I think not with this Ronald Koeman team, personally. So I think PSG is moving on. Anything else, I feel like is still up for grabs in the second leg. So that's still technically 5 spots. So a lot of exciting football next couple of weeks in the Champions League.
Exactly. So now moving on to the next exciting tournament. We all saw the draw of 16 happen this week in the Europa League. Lots of exciting matches happening. So for me, I have 4 matches that I think are the highlight of that draw of 16. But I'm going to start it off with Chris on this draw of 16. Give us your takes on the 4 best matches to pay attention to, and also some that are sneaky good in there.
So obviously, I think the best one of them all is definitely United and AC Milan. Both sides have historic history with it, with the Europa League especially, and for Milan, you have Zlatan Ibrahimovic and Diego Dalot facing against their former team in Manchester United. So you're going to see a bunch of talent in that game. You're going to see a bunch of guys that want to solidify themselves as top talent, whether it's on United or AC Milan. So that's going to be the clash of the Titans of the Europa League, because both of them are in the top 4 in their respective leagues. Oh my god, I just had a brain fart. Did you see the smoke coming out of my ears? Like, oh Jesus. But that's definitely going to be the giant matchup that everybody's going to look forward to. For me, Olympiacos and Arsenal. It was this time last year that Olympiacos eliminated Arsenal in the Europa League. Arsenal's coming out for revenge. They played very well today against Leicester City, who is out of the Europa League as well. So for me, Arsenal and Olympiacos is going to be good because Olympiacos is a good team and Arsenal is in one of the best leagues in the world, and they've been kind of shaky this year, but their form has been a lot better as of late. So I expect Arsenal to give Olympiacos some trouble. Another one for me, Roma and Shakhtar Donetska. We saw what Shakhtar could do in the Champions League. Roma is slowly declining in this area where their standing is in the table. So I think this is going to be an interesting matchup because we saw what Shakhtar could do with Real Madrid and company. And then the last one for me, honestly, it's Dynamo Kiev and Villarreal. I know Ajax and Young Boys is going to be a very good one because you don't know what to expect. But Villarreal is a tough draw for Dynamo Kiev. Dynamo Kiev also played very well in the Champions League, and then they came right into the Europa League, and they dominated their matchup against Club Brugge. So for me, I just think that's going to be my fourth and final.
Okay.
But don't sleep on Granada and Molde as well.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I would agree with that. All right, so Andrew, what about you?
Yeah, so I agree with Chris about Man United and AC Milan kind of being the marquee matchup between the two biggest teams. That on paper, that's a matchup that certainly could be taking place in the Champions League. So it's a top dollar headliner, I think, for this round of 16. I also agree about Arsenal and Olympiacos. I think this could be a real turning point for Mikel Arteta in terms of how this season for Arsenal is viewed. Like you said, Chris, a year ago, Olympiacos had that crazy comeback against Arsenal in London, I think. And it's a chance to bounce back and make a statement and kind of get some momentum to go on and do some good things in the Premier League as well. I mean, today they beat Leicester 3-1, which is a big win for Arsenal. But I just think this is a big opportunity to not only progress into the next round of the Europa League, but really start to put together some big wins for this season. Then Ajax and Young Boys would be my third pick. Young Boys really surprised me actually in the last round by beating Leverkusen, who are right up near the top of the Bundesliga. I thought they would win that without too much trouble, so I was impressed by them. And of course, we all know how much attacking talent Ajax has, so I think that has the potential to be a very exciting, open couple of matches between those two teams. And then my fourth and final pick would be Slavia Praha against Rangers. I think they're two teams that are kind of on a similar level and have the potential to produce a very even and competitive match. It's also another chance for Steven Gerrard to continue sort of building his managerial resume. I think I'm not saying Jurgen Klopp will leave Liverpool anytime soon, but I think there has been rumblings that Gerrard will be the guy to replace him when that does eventually happen. And I think with what he's done at Rangers this season, both in the league and in European competition, he's really starting to make a case for himself and actually provide some justification for that spot that is outside of just being obviously one of Liverpool's best players in the past decade, 2 decades. So that would be my four picks. Honestly, I think pretty much every one of these matchups is exciting. It's a really good round of 16 for the Europa League. So I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, those 4 games in particular stand out to me.
Yeah, no,
I think real quick before we let Diego take the head here. Do you remember when Ajax lost Donny van der Beek and Hakim Ziyech, and people were wondering how this team was going to be? It's mind-boggling to me how good this team still is, even though they lost 2 of their best creative pieces from a season ago.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because if you look at Ajax the past 3 years, like for example, Mathis Delete, he went over to Juventus, easily replaced immediately, right? Van der Beek, as you mentioned, easily replaced. CH, easily replaced. I just has been very good for the past, I would almost say, decade at replacing talent that they've let go because their academy continues to be a foundation for the next future of European top 20 players in the world. So if anything, that's more of a huge shout out to Ajax for continuing to do what they're doing in their program and creating such great talent for the rest of Europe to enjoy watching. But with that said, I think for me, my top four matches of this draw 16 are obviously Manchester United versus AC Milan. It's not being biased. It's just those two clubs going against each other. As mentioned,
Being biased. Just kidding.
Well, as mentioned,
we all agreed on it. It's fine. I'm joking.
As mentioned by Fasciano, like that is such a marquee matchup that you expect it to happen actually at Champions League level, like maybe like semifinal, quarterfinal kind of round thing to happen.
Well, the only thing with it though is AC Milan hasn't been as great as they are this year, and God knows how long.
Yeah, it's been. Yeah. I mean, you can almost say that about the whole entire Serie A. Like Inter Milan have been declining for a while. Roma have been declining for a while.
No, seriously, like Inter's always been like a top 14.
It's the same with Juventus. Like they're always been a top 4.
Their European League form always drops.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like Serie A in itself kind of dropped immediately after that era of like Francesco Totti, Andrea Pirlo, Gattuso, and all those guys.
Oh, it definitely took a big hit, but we're slowly working our way back up.
Right, but now they're starting to make their way back. Like Juventus, for example, what a stacked up team they have. I'm actually surprised that they're not leading the whole entire league. But then you look at AC Milan and Inter Milan, the foundation of their games has been so creative that's why they're at the very top of the top in that whole entire league. So again, Manchester United versus AC Milan, what a marquee matchup. What an excellent draw for the Europa League. Following up with that, I would say Olympiacos and Arsenal. I mean, there's a lot of history between these two, and just as of recent, that massive comeback last year was just phenomenal. Roma versus Shakhtar Donetska, I think it's such an ideal match because both games play such a similar style of play. But I think it's important for Roma that if they are starting to decline a little bit in Serie A, to pick things up in Europa League to kind of make this season that much better for themselves. And then lastly, I would definitely agree with the Slavia Praha versus Rangers game. I mean, Steve Gerrard has been writing a story to literally remember for ages and ages to come for that Scottish team. I think if the speculations are correct and Jurgen Klopp does leave Liverpool for some odd reason and Steve Gerrard replaces him, I would almost say that Steve Gerrard would be a much better Premier League coach than Frank Lampard could have been for Chelsea, just because Gerrard literally lived the legacy of Liverpool right down to its letter. Like he never wanted to leave Liverpool ever in his whole entire career. While, on the other hand, Lampard had it, Lampard blew it. So that's Europa League. But now that we're talking about Lampard and Gerrard, let's transition real quick into the Premier League. Lots of action happening in the month of March. It is a very important month for everybody in the top 5, maybe even the whole entire top 10, because in itself, that top 5 ranking thus far for the Premier League is still relatively close. It's about maybe even 12 points at the most in terms of leads. So let's touch base real quick on Premier League. We know Manchester City is leading the table, I believe, at 62 points. They have a 13-point lead on Manchester United and Leicester City. Then you got West Ham, and then you got Chelsea. I'm going to start with Andrew to give me his takes on the Premier League moving into the month of March, and what are some important things for the top 5 teams, or maybe even the rest of the league in itself, to do in this March window, so that moving on to April and closing the season, they can either do better or save their season, for better or for worse.
Yeah, I mean, I think like we've talked about, it's pretty much Manchester City's title to lose at this point. Mm-hmm. So I think really the potential for teams to move up and down is not in that top spot, but below that, like you said, 2 through 5, 2 through 6 or 7 as well. So one thing that I think is interesting between Man United and Leicester is that obviously Leicester was knocked out of the Europa League by Slavia Praha in the last round, which means on the one hand, they have one less competition to worry about than Manchester United right now. But at the same time, I think it's they lost again today to Arsenal. So I think you could also say that it's an indicator of a little bit of a downturn in form for them. Do you have something to add, Chris?
I've just been saying, just wait for the downturn
of
Leicester City for weeks now. And here we are.
Yeah,
here we are.
We have seen this before.
Here we are.
We have seen this before with Brendan Rodgers managed teams, both at Leicester and I think you could also say at Liverpool as well when he was there. Yep. So it does kind of seem to be a bit of a worrying trend for them. I think David Moyes and West Ham deserve a ton of credit. David Moyes is a manager that, as an Everton fan, I have a lot of respect for what he did in his decade at Everton. And, I think he's had some difficult years in the past little while, especially his time at Sunderland when he was relegated with them. That was not a good stamp on the resume of any manager. But I think he's bounced back in a big way at West Ham in this stint. And they've been punching above their weight class, I think, this Premier League season, and they deserve a lot of credit for that. Kind of as the season has gone on, I've sort of been expecting them to eventually drop out of that top 5 or so that they've been in pretty consistently throughout this whole season, and it hasn't happened. So I don't know. I think we could see West Ham qualify for the Europa League, or even I don't think they'll finish in the top 4, but I think they could very well finish in the top 6 or 7. Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting because we were talking about this before coming on air, that really even all the way down to Arsenal in 10th right now, they're only 3 points out of where Everton and Liverpool are in 6th and 7th. So there's a whole number of teams that are still right in the fight in terms of qualifying for Europe. Really, I think 2 teams that I would look at in particular, Chelsea and Tottenham. I think Chelsea is trending in the right direction. I could very easily see them qualifying for the Champions League and pushing up into that, even as high as top 3. I think that City obviously won. I think United will probably finish up there. And then I could also see Chelsea getting up there. And then sort of that 4th spot, I could see going to any number of teams between Leicester, Liverpool, teams like that are sort of hovering around there. And then,
give your team the credit. They can do it.
I don't know.
They can do it.
I think we can qualify for the Europa League. I think Champions League might be a bridge too far this season. But
still can do it. You're only 5 points back. Trust me.
It's true.
Same
Mathematically,
same
it is
boat
possible.
as me.
Yeah. And then Tottenham, the other team I mentioned, I think they are winning today, but I would argue that they're trending in the opposite direction. Obviously, a team that got off to a great start this season, but there's a lot riding on, I think, the Europa League for Jose Mourinho's future at Tottenham. He needs to have some success, and I would say maybe even win that competition to avoid being out of a job when the season ends.
Agreed.
Yeah, those are my thoughts for now.
All right, over to Chris.
One team here to keep an eye on. I've been waiting for them to make their big push. I think now is the time that we're going to see it because they have 12 games left on the schedule. It's going to be Arsenal. Arsenal's going to somehow manage their way to get into at least the top 7, maybe even top 6. They're sitting currently 3 points back at the 6th spot. This team, it's night and day with this team, but if Arteta is going to get them to start playing at the level that they can play at, now would be the time to do it. So I'm looking out for them. I am looking out for, as you can see behind Andrew, the Everton are Magic, the Toffees. Their schedule coming up, man. I mean, besides
wait a minute. Harry Maguire is a Manchester United Everton fan, just so you know.
So besides their FA Cup against Man City, which is going to be a great game. They got Southampton, they got West Brom, they got Chelsea, and they got Burnley this month. That's an easy, in my opinion, that's an easy way to get at least 9 points out of that. There's no reason why you shouldn't get at least 9, maybe 8, depending on if you want to draw with Southampton or not.
Yeah,
Other than
just to add to that real quick, I think this sort of stretch that you're talking about is going to be the decisive period in Everton's season, because obviously coming off the back of the first derby win in over a decade, are you going to take that and then build upon it and trend in the right direction, or are we going to see this sort of inconsistent Everton that we've seen at times this season? So I think you're spot on with that.
What a kind way to deliver a kick to the teeth of Chris, just reminding him that they lost the Merseyside derby.
No, he's being completely honest with it, dude. See, this is what you do. You try to start stuff between us, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work. It never works between us. It never does.
It's called content. It's called content.
Yeah, well, you fail at it every time. Liverpool desperately needs a win today. They're playing Sheffield United. They need a win to stay afloat, because then they have Chelsea on Thursday, which is going to be a absolute bloodbath of a game between the two teams. Then you got Fulham. Then you have RB Leipzig in the UEFA Champions League, and then you got Wolves before heading into the month of April. So they have a toughish stretch, but they're going to need all the points that they can get. In order for them to finish in the top four, in my opinion, they have to get at least 60, in like the high 60s. Right now, they're sitting at 40, so they need to do some work in their last 13 games in the Premier League. West Ham, I don't think goes lower than 6. Leicester, I don't think goes lower than 6. I think Chelsea. I agree with Fasciano. I think Chelsea finishes 3rd. I would love to see them finish 2nd in the table, but I just think Man United just has that advantage on them. I mean, obviously it could happen. They're only 6 points back with 14 games left technically, and they played them today, so it could happen. But I still see United finishing 2. Obviously City's 1, Chelsea's 3, and then 4 is up for grabs between Everton, Liverpool, West Ham, and Leicester City.
All right. So I think for me, for the month of March, Manchester City, just continue doing what you're doing. You got a great matchup against Wolves coming up on Tuesday at 3:00. Then you got the Manchester Derby. That's probably the toughest part of this stretch for March as it comes to Manchester City. The only concern that I have for City is they're playing a physical Gladbach in the Champions League. And if a knock or two was to happen to Manchester City, I think it derails the current game that they have, just because the bench hasn't been as utilized as maybe it should be for Pep Guardiola coming into this deep of a stretch.
Yep.
That's my only concern that I have for Manchester City. For United, they have to keep the focus going, and they have to really address the issues of a few minor injuries that could escalate to bigger injuries if you utilize these people the wrong way. So people like Edison Cavani, people like Scott McTominay, people like Paul Pogba, who's just coming back from injury. I mean, Pogba himself had a great stretch between mid-January to mid-February, and then that injury just took him back again to what he was just coming back into when it came to December. So that's a big impact for Manchester United. I think if you continue to overutilize somebody like Bruno Fernandes, eventually exhaustion becomes a real thing for him, and it could decline the current form that he's in, which is just unbelievable. The guy has been probably, in my opinion, one of the best signings the Premier League has had over the past year or so. Then for Leicester City, I hate to say this, but Brendan Rodgers has really got to put something together here so that the typical decline of Leicester City yearly does not really get that deep. It happened to them last year where they had to compete against Manchester United for a Champions League run. It shouldn't happen this year. I think Jamie Vardy has had a phenomenal season thus far. He continues to put up great numbers, and if I was Leicester City, I kind of want to create something that really motivates Jamie Vardy to get to an even deeper level, because everybody knows he can. For West Ham, what a phenomenal story. I mean, as Andrew alluded, David Moyes has outstanding with this team. The Hammers have really put the hammer down and have just done things right. They really have. I was I was a big fan of David Moyes when he was at United. He started a great way, but ended in a very rocky manner. As soon as he went to Sunderland, as Andrew mentioned, like that career really took a deep dive. But seeing his rebirth happen at West Ham has just been a phenomenal ride all along. So congratulations to David Moyes and the Hammers. For Chelsea, we all agreed that it was time for Lampard to kind of get out and make a change. Um, it is Roman Abramovich, or however you say his last name. He has no patience at all for anybody. So to have seen Thomas Tuchel come in and take Chelsea by the hand and really been in Premier League wise, they've been 4-0-2. 4 victories, no losses, 2 ties. I think their biggest threat so far in this stretch is literally today when they play Manchester United. That's going to be the biggest test thus far in the Thomas Tuchel era. Um, Overall, the biggest test obviously was Atletico Madrid, and they succeeded that. And then for Manchester City, um, as I mentioned, it's a derby. The derby's going to be hard for them because Manchester United has nothing to lose, while Manchester City, if a knock or two, like I mentioned before, happen and that damages their Champions League run, then it becomes a decline. Um, the only teams that I'm actually kind of worried about in terms of relegation are people like Newcastle and maybe even Brighton. Um, Fulham has been really good as of late, and they could make a deep run to kind of keep their dreams alive right now. I mean, they're only trailing behind to Newcastle by 3 points, while Newcastle has dropped form like crazy. You have Sir Maxim, and then you have Almiron. I don't know why your offense isn't clicking together. You really have a great offense in itself.
The
Um,
coach.
yeah, I would agree with that. And I would almost say too that like the other team I'm really looking forward to watching in March is Everton. I mean, Carlo Ancelotti has done a phenomenal job with that team. I think honestly, besides that FA Cup matchup against Manchester City, Everton could really make a magical run here in March and could even get top 5. I don't know about top 4, just considering the current form of the top 4 teams, unless Leicester City just continues to take a deeper dive and Chelsea takes advantage of it. Then I can see Everton maybe starting to just kind of tease a little bit into that top 4. Um, but man, kudos to Carlo. Really, just nothing but respect to Carlo. Um, for Liverpool, it's unfortunate how much stuff they've been dealing with this year. Not only center back situation, but also personal situations. I mean, we saw Jurgen Klopp deal with and still dealing with the passing away of his mom, I believe, was that passed away.
Yep.
Then you got Alison Becker, who just recently, got the most unfortunate news you could have ever gotten as a professional soccer player. So for Liverpool, I just hope that they maintain Jurgen Klopp in the institution for another year, give him another chance, and just wipe 2020, 2021 as a clean slate. Just be like, forget it. There was way too much to happen in that year. Just kind of take 2022 and run with it. Because if there's anybody that I currently respect in terms of the top 4 coaches in the world is Jurgen Klopp. Like, I have nothing but respect for that guy. Other than that, I've alluded to it before, and I'll continue to allude to it. Mourinho and Tottenham, I'm not sure that that's a very good combination. Um, if this Europa League tournament does not go into a deep run, as it is common of Mourinho and the Europa League should just marry each other. That's like his tournament. Um, but if Mourinho manages to get out of the Europa League, as Chris has mentioned, and I will mention as well, I think you can easily lose talents like Heung-min Son and Harry Kane. Like, and never mind the fact that you are going to lose Dele Alli come this summer, because PSG is not gonna give up on Dele Alli. I can guarantee you that. But that does it for the Premier League. And enough of Europe. We're gonna make the hop, skip, and a jump over to the other side of the pond, and we're gonna come down to North America. She Believes Cup. I believe just came to a conclusion, if I'm not mistaken.
It did.
Andrew, why don't you just give us an update on that and give us your takes, considering we also your article yesterday and we want to learn more about it.
Yeah, that's right. So it finished up on Wednesday. Wednesday night was the last sort of period of games in that tournament. And to the delight of American soccer fans, it finished up with the USWNT taking home another title at the She Believes Cup. So yeah, round of applause. That's now, the tournament has been held for 6 years and the USA has won it 4 times. So that's pretty impressive. Over half of the editions. They were maybe not quite as good offensively in the first 2 games, but defensively, USA was fantastic in this tournament. 2021 is now the first time that a team has made it through the whole She Believes Cup tournament without conceding a single goal. So you're obviously doing something right if you don't concede a goal in 3 games in a tournament like that. USA won their first game against Canada 1-0. They then beat Brazil 2-0 and finished off with a 6-0 win against Argentina, who I feel a little bit bad for because they came in kind of at the last minute to replace Japan, who couldn't play because of COVID reasons. So the Rose Lavelle was named the tournament MVP, which this year was decided by a fan vote. Rose Lavelle, personally one of my favorite players. I think the way she runs at opposition defenses with the ball at her feet is kind of like gives you something else in that team that no one else can give you, I think. So that's exciting to see her recognized for that. I think kind of the She Believes Cup is obviously important and it's a great way to start off the year by winning a trophy, but I think it's kind of part of the build up to the Olympics this year. Obviously the Olympics and the World Cup are kind of the 2 main things in international soccer. So I think kind of for players who were either on the bubble or trying to make a roster spot for the Olympics, you have to remember that there's only 18 slots on that roster, which is quite a bit less actually than you'll usually see in international tournaments. So it's going to be a tough decision just because of how deep and stacked the USA's women's player pool really is. I think I've said it before, but I could see a USA B team contending for medals at that tournament just because of how many good players we have, which is very cool to see. But so yeah, I think this tournament important because of the victory, but then also because it gives a great chance to kind of see who's on form, who's playing well, and who you want to take to the Olympics to try and get a gold medal this summer in Japan.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Shout out to 2 local Massachusetts girls, Rose Lavelle and Kristen Mewis. Congratulations on the She Believes Cup. So with that said, that does it for episode 26 of the Yellow Card Podcast. Notice I emphasize 26 because it's me. I make common mistakes all the time. So 26, episode 26. Aisle 26 as well in the grocery store. But anyways, that does it for episode 26. Make sure that you're following the Yellow Card Podcast on Twitter, on Spotify, on SoundCloud, on YouTube, at the Couch Guy Sports channel. You can find us on Twitter, like I said, at Podcast Card on Twitter. And with that said, episode 26 has come to an end. Check out our Twitch stream today, Sunday, February 28th at 11:30, when we see Manchester United versus Chelsea. Thank you so much for tuning in, and see you guys all next week.